think I'm here.
I think we're all here.
I get the salute from Jimmy.
And some of us are asking why we're here, but that's okay.
Oh, you can hear me now. Okay. Sort of
He
works.
had to turn his hearing aid up.
Okay, yeah. Understandable.
You know how that is.
Cool. I can't see who's here.
Well, so far, Flatbed Aquatics, Zen.
You know, I was going to send you a link the other day. I watched this whole video and I thought, Stephen would probably like to look at this. And then I didn't do it.
Uh-oh.
Cool. Well, that was very helpful for me.
Yeah.
You want to describe it?
Yeah, well, that's what, Curtis, that's just like you. You always do that.
Yeah. It's a Lois Aqua Design from Germany.
Never heard.
Design and Germany are usually a good combination.
But she goes to this. It's subtitled because the guy speaks in German. But they go and build a light.
Oh.
You get the frame and the power supply. And then they have, I'm going to call them pucks, hanging on the wall. And you can get saltwater ones or 6,000 Kelvin, 7,500 Kelvin. And you just place them in there and tighten these 4 screws and you're done. And it's waterproof. The guy says he's had one running underwater for 5 years.
Dang.
Holy cow.
A spotlight type of light?
No, it's a strip light. It's an
Oh,
LED.
okay.
But you can
Like
put
a plant light?
Yeah, it's one like, it's like this.
Like that one I just got.
Yeah.
But you could take them out and move them. You could put like 2 in the middle, or you could just loosen the screws up and move them. You could put 4 in, 6 in, however much money you want to spend and all that.
Now, do you get to choose what diode you want in there? Like, you can do like the narrow band spectrum. Like, I just want red, greens, and blues.
Yeah, you had a whole selection hanging on the wall of all these options.
I bet that's expensive.
Yeah. But it's cool to see because they actually show them making the board.
Oh, well, send me that. Why'd you not send that?
I don't know. I got done watching it and I was just like, oh, look at this other one.
Because Curtis doesn't care about people. Curtis doesn't like anybody. That's why he doesn't do anything for anybody.
Hey, at least I remember today.
You remember the thought of it, I guess. That's cool.
I'm kidding, of course. I'm kidding.
Yeah, you'd be able to build your own light the way you want.
Yeah.
Whatever
exactly.
spectrum.
She never says the price, so I'm sure it was ridiculous.
Well, I mean, there are people like serious light nerds that are like really into that stuff. I don't know a whole lot about what goes into building them. I just kind of know like what outputs I want to grow the stuff I want. So it would be interesting to learn about that. Probably way over my head though.
Your tanks are all high tech, aren't they, Stephen?
No, only. So I have 20 tanks and 8 of them.
Holy cow!
I guess you would consider 8 of them would be, well, they're CO2 injected, so I guess that might automatically make them high tech. Although, like, a few of them are CO2 injected but low light, so they are kind of on autopilot. Like, they don't require a lot of maintenance, and the carbon itself kind of makes them run on autopilot and still look good as long as you keep the light real low.
Well, I like that.
Yeah.
I like autopilot. Autopilot sounds great to me.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Definitely.
Water changes sort of optional. I mean, I do them anyway because I have a routine, and you know, if I'm water changing a 15 gallon next to a 7 gallon, I might as well change the 7 gallon too.
Makes sense, yeah.
Well, Stephen, I'm going to confess, I have not been watching hardly anything on YouTube for the last several months. I've been
not even me. Jeez.
So, in a nutshell, catch me up on some of your latest activities, would you please? I didn't know you had 20 tanks. I had no idea you had that
back
many.
in time do I need to go?
At least a month.
A month or two. A month or two would be great.
Well, I mean, I've had 20 tanks for a little while. Mostly, they are I can't just do one thing. That's why I've got high tech, but even the high tech has a broad spectrum of like the one bleeding edge, like God help you if you neglect maintenance on it type of tank. And then there's like the autopilot CO2 injected, and then there's the low tech where they're low tech and understocked and just like a deep sand bed. Some of them have aqua soil underneath, some of them have gravel, some of them are just like straight up sand. But a lot of them are understocked just because I'm doing different quarry breeding. So like I've got a 29 that has Adolphoi quarries or Duplicarius or whatever they are. They look the same.
Okay.
And then I've got one that has longfin Paleatus. Then I've always got the mosh pit. Like that's never going to go away.
And you know that's my favorite tank. That's my favorite one.
Here, just for you. I'll switch the background to the mosh pit.
Oh man, look at that! My gosh, unbelievable! Yeah, I know you don't think you probably don't think it's a big deal, but my gosh, that is just incredible to me. It really is.
It is a huge deal for me because it was one of my first tanks, and I had no idea what I was doing whenever I set it up. It was an experience.
Oh my gosh!
Isn't that the one that crashed on you?
It crashed on me very early on, like within a couple of months of setting it up. Because
I mean, guys, look at that. Look at how beautiful that is. I mean it.
Like I was under the impression when I first set this up, it's been over 5 years now, that guppies are hardy and that they're not weak and terrible. But if you get them from a pet store, they're the worst. And I had a small colony going, and then I got some new ones and didn't quarantine. And I was scooping out like a dozen guppies a day for a little while in I think 2020-ish. But then, the sickness kind of runs its course, treat it, and then get the colony going again. And ever since then, it's been fine. Knock on wood. Because,
Well, you may or may not know, I inspired by you, 100%, I took an old 55 I have. I know 55s aren't your favorite tank, but that's what I got. And I made a mosh pit out of it and all kinds of stuff in it. But I have recently reduced it down to just Anubias. And I mean, there's like 40 or 50 Anubias plants in there. There's a lot of them. Mm-hmm. And crypts. I got some crypts from Curtis a while back.
It's one of my favorites.
I would like to fill that out even more, and maybe in the spring I can hit you up, and you know how I am, Stephen. I always ask for stuff.
Well, I mean, like in addition to all the random quarry breeding projects, most of my tanks at this point are plant farms because, like, I do the plants for members, and so
look at you.
I bring the form out twice a year. People fill out what they want, and then I can prioritize what I'm going to grow. Mostly easy weeds because they're fast growers.
Right.
Well, I'm sorry to say I'm not a member, but maybe you can give me an exemption.
I might be able to do that. I mean, if random people that I've never seen in chat anywhere ever are filling out the plant form because they were gifted a membership, I think I can make an exception for Jimmy.
Well, I appreciate that. And Stephen, I have cut way back. I was up to 28 tanks at one time. It was just too much work. It just was. And work isn't fun. Well, when a hobby becomes work, you got to do something, fun.
Yep.
So I cut back, and I'm down to 6 tanks now. And but I want to make those the 6 best tanks I can make them. And the mosh pit is a special project, and any addition that I can get from anyone, especially you, because you're the inspiration for the tank. That's the truth. And I'll hit you up. I'll write you later on in the spring, and we can work something out. And hey, whatever I can do for you, I don't know what that might be. Maybe stay off your doorstep might be a good one. I don't know. If I ever show up there, let me in. Okay. But anyway, Yeah, let's do that, Stephen. I would love to have something because you are the first person that sent me something, and I'd like to recycle that activity and do it again. Okay,
Just keep on living. How about that?
I will. I'm doing my best, man. I tell you, I I am defying nature as well as most of the doctors that I know. So I'm not
Nice.
going anywhere, buddy. I'm not going anywhere.
So Moose was asking if my water is hard. My tap water is not. It has 7 degrees of KH, but it has 0 GH, no calcium ions in it. So I do have to mineralize each tank to whatever level I want to. As far as I know, I mean, I don't know. It can be. I don't know if it's proven, but eggs and calcium don't generally go together very well. Like excess calcium, like I guess eggs can calcify. There can be the ion barrier around the egg that prevents the Cory from being able to get out of the egg. So I tend to harvest Cory eggs and put them in RO water, so there's nothing in it. And then when they hatch, I kind of acclimate them to the tank water. And that seems to be going okay. But for a while, when I was trying to hatch them in tank water, I would 80% of them would fungus over. So even methylene blue plus tank water wasn't the best. So RO water has kind of been the best for me.
I think Jason from Primetide said something one time about too much calcium in the water basically blocks the pores in the eggs.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. That's why Richard Reynolds pulls his mops out of all of his rainbows and puts them in a bucket of RO water.
Yeah. Richard Reynolds breeds a lot of stuff, so yeah, I would.
Yeah.
If he's doing it, then I'll do it too.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, and Moose is asking if distilled water would work. I imagine so. Yeah.
Yeah, it should.
Probably should. Yeah. I would think.
I'm so lazy. One time I went out to the refrigerator outside and stole a bunch of my wife's Aquafina bottles and put them in a little.
Oh my gosh.
Hey, it worked.
Now, what's
That's something I would do.
composition of Aquafina water?
I would do that.
It had a TDS.
I would do that.
TDS, for what that's worth, was basically nothing.
Okay.
Wasn't a whole lot in it. But I didn't feel like going 5 miles to Walmart.
Well, they should have them big blue jugs.
Oh, yeah, but I don't have to now since I put my RO in. So.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, I had a bowl of Boost going where I was using distilled water. And then I got lazy with the distilled water and started adding tap water, and that Boost went south really fast. And then I finally got my RO unit hooked up and restarted the bowl, and it's been going really strong now.
Yeah.
Boost isn't a very easy plant. Boost isn't a very easy plant either.
It's a little finicky. The problem with Boost is that it really doesn't like the fact that we just want to waterboard it. It in the wild, it's above the water and fast flowing streams. It uptakes all the CO2 it can get, and then we submerge it in the underwater, and in hard water and high light can be a bad combo. How do you acclimate the fry back after they hatch? I don't know if it helps or not, but I do a drip acclimation back into the tank water, or not even a drip, more like I'll just start turkey bastering out some of the RO and putting some tank water in there, and when I think about it, every 30 minutes, every hour or so, I'll go and do a little bit more, and eventually I just dump them into the breeding ring. And they're doing all right. I mean, I'm not like master Cory breeder person, and I also am pretty negligent about the eggs. Like I'll see 5 and grab those, and then I'll get distracted, do something else, and maybe I'll find a few more. And then with the orange Venezuelan eggs, they lay 10 billion at a time. So I just kind of grab a cluster of those. I'm not counting. Yeah, all in one day has been fun.
Well, Stephen, what inspired you to start breeding the Corys? Why did you start doing that?
Because they're awesome.
Well, I agree with that. Yeah. I love
Well,
Corey's. Yeah.
just kind of randomly, I get so the ones I had, I saw eggs. I'm like, oh, let me pull those and then get them to hatch and stuff. And then I failed, and I'm like, well, now I have to double down and do it again. And
I
so,
see. I see.
and I'm sure
Okay.
I'll hatch a few and I'll raise some fry of all the different ones I have, and then I'll get bored and I'll move on to trying to breed something else. But
Well,
I
yeah.
don't,
Yeah.
I don't breed for profit. I just breed because like that's a thing to do, and let me see if I can.
Gotcha. Gotcha. I understand. Okay. I got it.
Yep.
I did bristlenose plecos for profit for a year or two, and yeah, that was stressful. It was a lot. Trying to raise
Curtis, how many
150 of
bristlenose you
those.
got?
I don't know, 50 or 60 longfin green dragons right now.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah.
I had just the regular ones, the common ancistrus. There was some albinos and some
50 or
longfins
60.
mixed in there.
Yeah.
I was raising
Well, I
150 of them in a 29. It was a lot.
Wow.
It was
Wow.
intense.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good reason too. Is like you get a fish, then you can't find it anymore, so you just see if you can make more of them.
Right. That's kind of what I'm doing. My LFS of these green dragons I got Curtis when they hatch out, they're wanting to buy as many of them as I can bring them.
That's a good
Nice.
problem to have.
Actually, as many
Now-
of them as I'll take them.
Now, Corys don't have a problem with any other fish, right? They're pretty much a social butterfly, right?
Yeah, I mean, for breeding, their eggs are delicious. Like they'll eat their own eggs, but if they don't,
What?
there's
Oh,
plenty
yeah,
of other fish
yeah.
that will. Yeah.
So you can
Yeah.
throw all different kinds of Corys together in the same tank, right?
You could.
I mean-
I've got
Well,
albinos
no.
with stir-bys.
yeah. There's.
I'm not talking
so
about.
they-
I'm not talking about. I'm not talking about breeding. I'm just talking about
Mhm.
keeping them. You know,
Yeah.
they do okay with each other.
Yeah,
Yeah.
in general, they reclassified the Corys recently, and now basically all the Corys from lineages 2 through 9 or something else, like Brochus, Hoplosoma, Osteogaster,
Oh, my.
Gastrodermis. But like the lineage 1 Corridors are still intact as Corridors, and apparently some of those are less community friendly than the rest.
Really?
I have no experience with this. It's just a thing I heard, a thing I read. So I wonder about that. Like if some a little bit more territorial.
And what kind of behavior are we talking about? Not being social. I mean, what do they
don't
attack
know.
other fish? Yeah, I mean, I don't know.
They got them they got them spikes. You know,
Well,
I have
that
no
is
idea.
true. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Interesting. I never knew that.
Or just territorial thing.
I think
Yeah.
in general, corridors are the ones in danger from other fish, though.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Like
All
Jake
right.
just said, cherry barbs like to kill certain cories. Oh my god. I only have
Well,
cherry
that's not
barbs in
very
one
nice.
tank, but yeah.
I did not know that, Jake. Wow.
I didn't either.
What is Jeff Kane saying here? Vampire Corys attack? Is
I
he
don't
being
know.
funny or because it's vampires or what?
Vampire Corey's attack.
And Stephen, refresh my memory. How many different types of Corys are there? I hear there's many, many, many.
You want me to name them all?
No, you probably could, but
You'd be here a
don't
while.
show off. Don't
No.
show off. Just tell me.
I can
how
name the
many.
ones I have. I have like 12 or 13 different species, but I don't know. A couple hundred something.
Yeah, I thought
Ones
so.
they haven't
I
found
thought-
yet. It's a good bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, enough of them that someone had to go mess with the whole lineage and classification and just like upend
Yeah,
all of
yeah.
what we thought we knew about Corys.
And now you can buy $100 book to find out all that information.
You're right. Didn't
It's
Skipper
signed.
buy that book?
He did, yeah.
They did.
It's autographed.
Yep, he's got the book.
Oh, we'll just Skipper needs to memorize the book, and no one else has to buy it.
Yeah, there you go.
You should take it to his local office place and have him scan it, and he can send us a digital copy.
Right.
It's probably more expensive to Xerox all those pages than it is to just buy the book.
Right.
Maybe. Maybe.
All right, one other thing while I'm thinking of it, Stephen. Like I said, I haven't been watching YouTube that much. So where can I see, what day, what time can I see anything that you are doing on YouTube these days?
Well, Monday at 4 p.m. Central is Wet Your Plants. That's where we talk about plants. We've been doing that stream for a
I
while
remember
now.
that. I remember that. Yeah.
And then Friday nights, 8:30 p.m. Central. That's our casual hangout stream. Steamy McStreamy. And it's
Okay.
usually me
All right.
and Jenna, and
what
sometimes
the fish?
Eric will join us, and Annette will join us after the holidays. But she's gets busy in December.
Right. Okay. I was wondering about the Wet Your Plants. I used to watch that all the time. I did.
Still going.
All right.
listen,
Okay.
I listen when I can at work because it's already over when I get home from work. So
Right.
I'm the guy sneaking around with the earbud in.
It's 2.5 years of trying to get everybody to use CO2.
Well, that I know. Yeah. Yes, I do.
By the end of this stream, I will have convinced you to get CO2.
Well, I have to admit, I'd be willing to try it. Like you said, you do certain activities just to do them, just to try it.
Mhm. Yeah.
CO2 is one of the things I've been curious about, but the cost of getting what I need, that's an issue. for
I've
me.
always got CO2 on hand.
Your
Yeah,
blood
well,
just like breathe into the tank.
No,
Yeah,
welding.
I would-
Welding.
Oh, yeah, there you go.
Get
I
the
would
full
like to
set.
try it. I would.
It is expensive the barrier to entry can be pricey because I don't recommend people go into the half-ass CO2 because I think people get frustrated before they get into the full benefit of it. Who invited
I
Stanley
see.
up on a panel?
Stop it. I've been listening to that for 4.5 years. Come on. Now.
You're gonna keep
Well,
hearing it.
Stephen, my middle name is half-assed. So see, that's another problem. See, so somebody like you, I would trust your judgment. Okay. Now I understand. I've always been an advocate of you get what you pay for. I realize that.
Right.
So maybe we could take it slow and I could get things a little at a time or something, but maybe that's another thing I can get together with you with because I really would like to try it. I would. I admit that.
Yeah. I mean, it's if you like plants and you're already pretty
love
good
them.
at plants, then
Yeah.
basically what it's doing is taking the main most limited nutrient underwater, carbon, bioavailable CO2, and
Right.
upping that, and so your plants grow in faster, more robust, healthier, better color. And it's all relative. Like plants can look fine without it because they'll just grow slower, and plants can survive various deficiencies and still look okay. And then you basically kind of accelerate it with CO2, like make everything much easier on you if you can dial it in. Although with Zen struggles because I don't know. But I am proud of myself, Zen, because eventually I think you're going to figure it out. It might take 100 refills of that CO2 canister, but I think you're going to get it.
Oh, no. Okay. Also, help me out here. Are there specific plants, Curtis and I always talk about doing things that are different, out of the box, off the that other people don't do. So with plants, I would assume there are some that almost require CO2.
Yeah, for sure. Because they grow in acidic environments and they are used to having bioavailable CO2 even during the rainy season. Like most of the plants that are sold in the aquarium trade are not fully aquatic. Like they spend in nature a lot of time above the water where they have all the CO2 that they can absorb. And then the rainy season comes along and a lot of plants have evolved to just kind of adapt underwater. And when we, take
Okay.
plants, we put them
Okay.
underwater, we're sort of getting them to do something unnatural. But Jake asked a great question. How does injecting CO2 replicate nature? Um, there are a lot of waterways that have natural dissolved CO2 levels that we cannot achieve in a closed system in our aquariums without pressurized injection. When we do pressurized CO2 injection, we're aiming for about 30 parts per million. Some go higher, some go a little bit lower, but on average, it's about 30 parts per million. One example of nature having literally 30 parts per million of dissolved CO2, look at the San Marcos River. It's a hard water river. It's on a limestone aquifer, and in that aquifer is dissolved CO2, a ton of it, like a bunch of carbonic acid seeping through that limestone, which is kind of where Texas Holy Rock, how it just looks like someone shot it up with a machine gun. It's all that carbonic acid that dissolves through that rock over time, and it's literally like water, highly dissolved CO2 in water under pressure. It's a pressurized system in nature, and it's like continuously releasing CO2 enriched water into the river. And in those areas where that water comes out into the river, you have a crap ton of diverse plant life just in those areas. And of course, it kind of diffuses and dilutes as it goes downstream. But right in those areas of the CO2 concentrations are at like 30 parts per million, give or take.
Okay. Okay.
The Pantanal in Brazil, that's a soft water system. And that dissolved CO2 level comes from a bunch of dissolved organics, like a lot of like manure and stuff breaking down. And kind of the same concept. It's just a different mechanism. So we can't really do that long term. We can't just have a continuous aquifer feeding our closed system. So the best way to replicate a pressurized system in our fish room is with like a pressurized CO2 canister that will fit in our fish room.
Well, let me ask you something else. Let me ask you something else about the system. Let's say that I didn't want to do a huge tank. Let's say I wanted to do like a 20-gallon.
That's perfect.
Do they make a smaller unit for that?
Yeah.
Yeah. The smaller you go, the easier it is to kind of half-ass it. So, they have those reaction systems, the sugar, yeast, citric acid, all that, like where you put all that crap together and start a reaction and then close it up. And then it'll release CO2. It'll form CO2 and then pressurizes the container and releases CO2 a little bit at a time. But if you try to inject one, like use that for like a 40-gallon tank, you're going to run out in a week or two. So you go with a nano tank, like a 5-gallon, then it starts to make a whole lot of sense.
Okay. Well, why don't we do that? Why don't we say I'm going to use a 20-gallon, which I have an available 20, and we'll talk about that. I'll send you some emails and we'll kick it back and forth, and let's see if I can't do that in the upcoming months. Okay. That'll be an early season project for me. Okay.
So what's your water?
I know the whole. I have very hard water. Right out of the well.
KH level?
Oh my gosh, Stephen. You might as well ask me what Mike's blood type is. I don't know.
Well, this was part of the
I should test all. You know what?
Well, I can tell you
I
that
have-
AB negative.
Be quiet. I have all the equipment. I have all the stuff to measure everything, Stephen. I just don't use it. Okay, I'm half-assed. I keep telling everybody that.
That's what she
So-
said.
Yeah, all the equipment, just don't
Exactly.
use it.
Yeah. Huh?
So
You know, I have
hard
the
water,
I have the
like-
me I have the meters and the water
Mhm.
testers and all. It's sitting on a shelf. It's just sitting there looking at me right now. So, you know, what can I tell you? All my
Well-
fish have adapted. All my fish have adapted to tap water. I mean it. They have. Right out of the tap. I don't do anything.
That's what fish do. They're super adaptable, just like plants. Just plants have different set of requirements, and sometimes
if you're
the hard
asking
water
me-
can block the plants.
Yeah, if you're asking me that I need to test and know all this stuff, then I'm of course I'm willing to do it, you know, to make
Yeah.
it work. Of course.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the issue is if you have a high KH, that means a high carbonate level. So Matt, if you have a high bicarbonate level in your water, that is a source of carbon for plants, but they use it way less efficiently. They have to convert it to CO2, which requires more energy. And
Okay.
if you have a high KH, that comes with a high pH. And so any amount of like a little bit of CO2 that gets injected into the tank, the sort of converts over to KH, and it's not really bioavailable to your plants. So the higher your KH, the more CO2 you have to inject versus someone who had a lower KH tank of the same capacity. So
Gotcha.
that's kind of where those
Okay.
those reaction kits kind of fail you, because I personally, I'm not gonna reset the reaction every few weeks or every month. Like I can't really be diligent about most things.
Right. Right. Okay. All right.
He said he's got
And just-
all the test equipment, including a TDS meter. Do you have a TDS meter?
Yes, I do. Yes.
Have
Never
you
been
used
used.
it? Never been used.
Never been
That's
used.
fine.
He watched your video and he said, "Nope, I'm not using it."
Yeah, he threw it
Yeah,
back up.
that's probably what I did.
He
Yeah.
threw it in the
probably.
tank.
Or Curtis said, you don't need that thing. You know, whatever. I don't know.
That one I threw in the tank in the video, I didn't expect it to float, but it did anyway, and it still works.
The only test that counts is TDS. Is that true or not?
Mhm. No. Nope.
I only used that when I was keeping
Well,
careful.
hi, Matt.
Well, yeah, because it's a conductivity meter, and so if you have RO water, you want to put the TDS meter in there, and you want it to say 0 or like 1, like a really, really low number, and that's just kind of verification that your membranes are not exhausted, like you still are getting RO out of there. But other than that, and I guess if you are used to remineralizing to a certain amount, and you know that once you've added a certain amount of minerals that it equates to whatever your TDS meter says, then you can use that as a quick check. But people try to use them as like a way to add up all of their nutrients and minerals and stuff, and are like just associated with water hardness in general without knowing what their water hardness is. And you know that's not a good way to do it, because it can be anything that's conductive.
Right. Right.
Am I too quiet?
No, you're fine.
Okay.
No, you sound fine.
Because I can increase
Every
it
time I
if
increase
needed.
the volume for Stephen,
Yeah.
Jimmy gets louder. Well, I'm sorry. I'll talk out of one side of my mouth for a while.
There you go.
It's better than you were before we started. So what do you think about the like easy carbon and that kind of stuff?
Easy carbon and fluval. I mean, not CCAM XL glutaraldehyde.
Yeah.
It's it's an algicide. It's not a bioavailable source of carbon. And I think basically what you're doing when you put that in your tank to kill algae, you're kind of poisoning everything else. It's just that algae is a much simpler organism and will react more quickly to the poison than everything else. So it's like it's like chemotherapy in your tank, and it's not something I recommend. It will certainly kill algae, but growing plants better also can fight algae.
Yeah,
I miss you. I really miss you, Matt. Thank you, Matt. Thank you. Hey, Stephen, what about algae and CO2? Can algae be a problem in a CO2 tank?
Oh yeah. Yeah, CO2 is not a solution to algae. But growing plants is a solution to algae, and CO2 makes it easier to grow plants. But plants, see, the thing about plants is every time you make a big change in their nutrient availability, especially with carbon, they take a few days to a couple of weeks to learn that change and adapt to it. And every time you make that change, it has to reset that adaptation time. But algae doesn't care. And when plants are not at their healthiest, when they are trying to redevelop enzymes to adapt, algae just steps in and will use the nutrients that plants can't use. So algae can be a lot worse if you are doing like inconsistent CO2 injection, which is another reason why you don't want those reaction systems if you're not going to keep it up and restart the reaction every time you see it getting low, because inconsistent CO2 can be worse than just no CO2. The dry tanks have no algae problems. I agree with that.
Yep. That's a good one, Geek Boy. Yeah,
he's
right. Okay, Stephen, I got another algae question for you. Since you can kind of like be the doctor on the program today and diagnose my problem. The only algae I have a problem with in just about every single one of my tanks, when I do have a problem, it's hair algae. That's it.
Welcome to the
hair
club.
Algae.
Yeah.
All right. Yep. That's the only one, but I get a lot of it sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
Is that a lighting issue? Do I have the light on too long, or what might be the problem with that?
I think most algae issues are a lighting issue, just because it's the one variable that we can change in a tank, especially like if we're not injecting CO2, we have a finite amount of carbon, and usually we have too much light. A lot of us have way too much light in our tanks, and me included. I'm guilty of that because I try to do things in low tech that you really shouldn't attempt in terms of lighting levels. And then I get hair algae, and then I'll go through a stint where I'm like really diligently cleaning out the hair algae and just making it look nice and being super up on maintenance. And then I'm like, I'm bored with this, and then I let it go, but I don't lower the light, and the algae comes back, and it gets pretty intense. Water, Craig said up the water changes. That helps a lot too. Just to get rid of the dissolved organics, the stuff that you can't measure with a TDS meter or any home test. That's a huge reason that you want to do water changes, is to get rid of that kind of stuff, like dissolved carbohydrates and lipids and proteins and all that crap that feeds bacteria that is not conductive, so you don't really know it's there. So.
Okay, I got another follow-up question with the water changes. What's the recommended percentage on a water change? Is there a blueprint for that?
No, everybody does. I mean, there are people who don't do any water changes, and they say that their tanks are fine. And if their tanks are fine, if their fish are thriving, they're happy with it, then more power to them. I don't think there's any prescribed water change regimen. There's things that work for me just because like I established this routine where even the tanks that technically are so understocked that I may not need to change their water for several months, I still do it once a week, just because I know that the tap water that I have is clean And so I'm
Right.
removing stuff that doesn't need to be there in our closed system and replacing it with fresh, clean water, which is essentially what happens in nature all the time. But, in terms of like how much should you change? I don't know. I do 30 to 50%, and the rainbow tanks, I do sometimes like 80. And,
Oh, really?
Yeah.
80?
Doesn't mean you
Okay.
have to.
Okay.
Doesn't mean you have to.
No. I would say 30 to 50 would probably work for me.
Just like me, I do 50% every 6 months on my big tanks.
Yep. I imagine that you do that because it works, and it's,
Yeah.
if you did that and your fish kept dying, then that would be the definition of
I've
insanity.
got fish breeding like crazy.
Yeah. I hear my cat. She's just wailing behind me.
I shouldn't laugh because I'm part of the cause of that.
Oh, what? Oh, the fish?
Yeah, the
Too
fish.
many fish?
The fish he's got breeding.
Mm.
Now, hey, Stephen,
Well, you and Jeff Kane.
since that mosh pit is just loaded with plants, how often, what kind of water changes do you do with that one?
30 to 50% weekly. Like I just have I have a
Okay.
routine where if I'm doing water changes, I might as well just stick the Python in every single tank while I'm there. Otherwise, I'll lose track
Okay.
of when the last time I changed water in a tank. So it's usually all or none, which allows me, if I do that kind of routine, but something happens over the weekend, if I'm sick or got too much crap going on, I will skip the water change and only be like mildly anxious about it and not like freaking out. So
Okay, well, whether you're changing the mosh pit water out or not, I would imagine with all those plants, your numbers have to be pretty good with all those plants, right?
there's plants growing out of the tank too, which also will take care of the nitrates.
Yeah,
Get out of here with that, Jenna.
that might. Jenna, nice to see you, kiddo.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, there's a lot of guppy grass and weeds and stuff in there that do absorb nitrates. But again, I don't think that nitrates are the only thing that we're trying to displace whenever we do a water change. I think there's a lot of other dissolved organics that we can't measure. It just so happens
Right.
that elevated nitrates usually correlate with elevated everything else that comes from organics breaking down. And so it's a good litmus test for like whether our water is kind of toxic. But when you got a crap ton of plants that take care of the nitrates but they do not take care of the other stuff, then you kind of just have to establish some kind of water change routine that works. And if your fish are doing
Right.
fine, then obviously whatever you're doing is fine.
Right, exactly. Well, I've always told people that I watch the fish. That's my
Yeah, exactly.
number one. Yeah, just watch the fish. So yeah, I get it. I got that part. Yeah, half-assed like everything else. I watch the fish.
Mhm. I try my best to be as lazy as possible most days.
Yeah,
But I
okay.
enjoy water changes. I enjoy maintenance. If I hated it, then I wouldn't do it. I probably wouldn't have as many tanks either.
Well, I really like the idea of putting clean water back in the tank. That there's a good feeling about that. So I understand. Yeah.
For sure. And fish, a lot of my fish, well, I mean, guppies, they don't give a shit. They just do what they do. Like there's no
Yeah.
thought behind
Right.
the guppy's eyes. But the
Eat
rainbows,
Right.
breed.
yeah, the rainbows respond to it very well. Like and same with Corey's too. Like, get that spawning going. It's Tommy.
Yeah, I was going to ask you. Yeah, I was going to ask you about that. If the water changes seem to help out the breeding process, I would imagine it would.
Yeah, I mean, I think you think about a fish that comes from a river, they like never see the same water twice. Like it's just, that water flows past them and it's gone and they never see it again. So like replenishing their water as often as you
Yeah.
can. be pretty beneficial.
I never thought of it that way. You're right. That's true.
Yeah, you're adding back what the fish use as well with fresh water and removing fish hormones. Yep, and I guess that could be one way that maybe a water change can be counterproductive to breeding, but I'm not well versed on that to know like the breeding hormones, the whatever's in the water that kind of trigger the spawning. If you start doing water change and remove that from the water, I don't know, maybe it inhibits them. I have no
Now,
idea.
Curtis wasn't it Adrian that said when he's got plecos spawning, the hormones in the water to go through all his sump and everything into the other tanks that he's got on there, and it causes all the other plecos to breed?
Yeah.
I've heard about that.
Eric Bodrock says the same thing.
Yeah, Bodrock too.
Yeah, I think you can do that with corridors as well. Just like give them some motivation.
And then doing cold water changes with quarries was causing them to start breeding.
'Tis the season for cold water changes around here. Otherwise, I'm doing 85-degree water changes even at night. It's so freaking hot in the summer. But finally, I can give them some 70-degree water.
Well, I do cold water on every tank every time.
I do too.
Yeah, I mean, well, I have corridors in every tank, so yeah, de facto.
Once a month tops.
Cold. 50% at most, once a month tops. Some tanks only get top offs, maybe a water change a couple of times a year.
50% once a month.
Yep. And I imagine it's working.
Yeah.
That's also because Jake has to carry buckets from the house.
Yeah, that would definitely discourage me from doing a lot of water changes.
That would slow me way down.
When I had 100 and some odd tanks, the bucket thing, it takes you a while. That's why I'm glad I downsized the way I did.
The growth inhibiting hormones. I feel like I read a study, and it was just about catfish, that there are growth inhibiting hormones, but that was just about catfish. And I don't even remember which catfish it is and whether or not that study only applies to that catfish. So yeah, that's about as much as I know about it. Although when I was raising 150 plecos in a 29-gallon, some of them were growing at wildly different rates. Like there would be some that still looked like fry, and then there were some that were sexable. So I just kept doing water changes in that. And that was my job, was water changing that tank. It wasn't a lot of fun.
I can imagine. Yeah.
Wasn't having a lot of fun with that one. It was exciting when they bred, and then I was like, well, now I have them, and that's not fun.
When I didn't have anywhere to go with them.
Yeah,
I was giving them away.
Yeah, by the end, I was giving them away. I made a good bit of money off of it. Then I just got so burnt out on like shipping and customer service and people and stuff.
People. Ooh.
Yeah.
People. Oh my God. I get it. I understand.
Angels, plecos, and goldfish. So, yep. I mean, with the mosh pit, population control in this tank is really just feeding. And I mean, there's platies, and I've witnessed platies hunting guppy fry like all the time. Like, yeah, have at it. There's no shortage of that. But I don't increase how much I feed in the tank just because I see fry in there. So
you're just feeding the tank anyway, aren't you?
Exactly. You feed the tank. Don't even put small food in there. Sometimes I'll put like wafers. It's like guppies will eat anything, anywhere, anytime. They'll figure it out.
Yes, they will. Yes,
when
they
I
will.
throw the green beans in or cucumbers or whatever, they're over there picking at it.
Mm-hmm.
They don't care.
This is like one of my cleanest tanks too. Like I never have to scrape the glass. There's a little bit of algae that grows on top of like the rocks and the wood, but yeah, other than that,
that sounds like a Limia tank.
Can I put Limias with these guppies and platies, or am I going to kill everything? Is it going to just destroy this whole thing?
They'll pick on them guppies.
Yeah, I wouldn't.
Yeah. Trying to figure out, can I put a third live bearer in there? And I'm just not sure.
Swordtails, they do the same.
Oh my God, the swordtails would rule the tank.
Mollies.
Yeah, would that
Oh,
have a muppy problem?
swordtails. Swordtails
yeah,
would not go
swordtails can
good
be
with the
boisterous.
guppies, huh?
Mm.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they're pretty
okay.
boisterous.
I don't have any in there.
You might try like some Miller Eye if you can get a hold of them.
Yeah.
Swordless swordtails.
Okay. I mean, that's basically a play.
So, Stephen, are they all
Right.
Pretty
live
much.
bears? Do you have all live bears in that tank?
It's guppies / inler guppies, basically the same thing, and platies, the maculatus platies, and some pandacories,
Okay.
and some shrimp and snails and all that.
Craig's offering to come help
All right.
carry a
Okay.
10-footer.
Okay. Just pay his airfare?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's okay. Sure.
We've already got it moved.
I'll come help you if you got a forklift.
That's what we used.
Blueberry
Bobcat.
snails sound enticing. I'm not paying $10 a snail or whatever they cost right now. And then finding out what they have, they give birth to one snail a month.
Yeah.
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 But I do kind of want some.
I've already been trying to talk what's his name, Ben, in Lake Missoula.
Mm-hmm.
He's breeding them. He's got some videos out of the babies now. Try to con him out of half
On
of
the
them.
blueberries?
How much are they now? When they were new, beginning of the year, sometime like that, they were outrageous.
Yeah, I haven't even looked. Because I looked one time and it was like, yeah, I'm not getting those.
Yeah. I've never seen a snail and wanted it so bad that I was willing to pay anything but a very low single-digit price for it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Well, let's see here.
I think you should get some of those algae-eating shrimp that Dan has.
Oh yeah.
Oh, the green algae.
I'm thinking about it.
I kind of want some just to check them out. I don't know if I want to pay for them too.
Yeah.
He's been selling a lot.
Well, I just looked up one source, and it just happens to be Dan's Fish.
Mm-hmm.
He's selling a 3-pack for $40. Blueberries.
So that'll be the top end of the price for sure.
Okay.
So,
yeah.
Yeah, that's
the first one that popped up.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And you got shipping, which is probably about the same.
Well, you would fill that box. I'm not ordering just snails. I have to see what else they got, and then
Well, what makes them?
What
What makes them so special? Is there something that makes those special, or what? What's the big deal about blueberry snails?
They're new. They're new and they're blue.
Okay.
New and blue.
Novelty.
Yeah.
Okay.
And they're live bears. They don't lay eggs. They have
Mhm.
live young.
Okay. Okay. Interesting.
Oh, doesn't aren't rabbit snails live bears too?
Yep. So are Malaysian trumpet snails. No one's.
Oh, I know they are.
Those. I got plenty of those. They ever get
I got a
popular
few.
again.
That's one. 4 tanks full with them.
Well, my puffers will not eat them. That's the problem.
My Shelleys don't eat them, but they'll sure play with them.
Your goldfish will eat them.
Okay.
I throw
Goldfish will
handfuls
eat
of
Malaysian
rambunctious
trumpet
in the goldfish.
snails?
Yeah.
How do they get in there?
They do.
Dang. My puffers get offended when I put them in there. I try to trick them. I'll take some pond snails and ram's horns and I'll mix some Malaysian trumpet snails in there. Maybe they just don't know what they're missing, but occasionally they'll take a bite out of one and then they give up.
My Oscar has been eating the red ram's horn snails I've got like crazy. She is just going nuts on them.
They're big and meaty.
That Oscar's big enough, probably doesn't even do anything to just swallow it.
Pretty much.
Do Oscars have like the what's the
Yeah, they got the teeth
pharyngeal
back in the.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, she's good sized.
Good idea, Craig. We just paint the MTS blue.
Just lay them all out on a piece of cardboard and start spraying.
Yep. And see how long it is before they all die because of the paint. Never heard of plecos eating snails.
Yes, they would. They would
Not that
try.
I know of. They would try, yeah.
I've seen a couple of these green dragons latch onto a snail and go for a ride, but that's about it.
I'm pro any snail. In fact, like I have one of my like super high end, the bleeding edge system where like the highlight and CO2 and everything needs to be dialed in perfect, or algae creeps up. I got the green dust algae going in it right now, and shrimp and snails are really great. Plecos too, but I don't want to put a pleco in there. But the shrimp and snails will get rid of that green dust algae really well, except I also have freaking zebra loaches in there, and they eat every single one of those snails and shrimp that I put in there. So I'm just going to have to deal with it manually, which is annoying, or get rid of the zebra loaches.
I can't help you there, Tommy. I don't have any duckweed.
I got lots, and my 2025 goal is to have none, so that I don't have to.
Yep.
So okay, look at this mosh pit. There's probably a full layer of duckweed up here. How many stupid ass guppies do you think will go through that vacuum if I try to shop? Because otherwise, I would do that in a heartbeat.
It's what Curtis did.
Yeah, I just got mad one day and said, hell with it.
Screw the guppies.
Yeah, I'm done. Here comes the shop vac.
You get so fed up with duckweed. Yeah. I haven't got to that point yet to bring myself to do that.
And then every time I order something, I think people are trying to get me because you open this bag of fish and it's like, what is that floating in there? Somebody says eat duckweed.
Just take some relief.
It's like, no.
I've been lucky. I haven't had it.
Yeah, well, I got it one day and I'm like, I bet this would be a nice nutrient absorber, and I just put it in a tank, and now I have it in a lot of tanks.
Well, yeah, all you gotta do is get it in one, and you wind up with it in all of them.
Yeah, it's sticky. And then I use the one python for every tank. That's probably the biggest contaminant problem that I have using a single python is duckweed.
Probably.
Yep.
But I would like to get rid of the duckweed so that I don't have to tell people that, hey, your plants are going to have duckweed in them. I try my best to get rid of all the duckweed, but it only takes one.
Yep.
Like Geek said, people that send duckweed out to others are the worst.
You should send Geek some then.
I have. And that's why he says that. That's why Geek doesn't want plants from me anymore.
Oh, okay.
That explains it.
Stephen, do you have floating plants in your tanks? What's your favorite floating plant?
My favorite
duckweed.
Floating plant is none. But if I could get red root floaters to be consistent, it would be fine. But I go through phases where I like them, but then like they will multiply and still not look that good because the light's not strong enough. And then I get rid of a lot of the red root floaters, which causes more water turbulence on the surface, which in turn like kills the rest of the red root floaters. Frog bit's not bad in terms of like being invasive and annoying. Duckweed is terrible.
Hornwort, I've got tons of that.
I've never had hornwort. I was warned against it a long time ago and just kind of avoided it. Yeah, the water lettuce. Yeah, I like water lettuce outside for sure.
Yeah, outside that would be great.
Especially
Yeah.
the big water lettuce.
Yeah. I think there's dwarf water lettuce or something sold as dwarf water lettuce, but what I noticed is the water lettuce, if I put it in my aquariums, it's dwarf. If I take that same water lettuce, put it outside, it becomes
Huge.
full grown big boy water lettuce.
Mhm.
Yeah, sounds about right.
Hornwort's
Well,
awesome for
guys,
ammonia.
it's been about an hour.
All right.
I say we call her a night.
All righty. Well, it's good
Yeah.
talking to y'all.
Yeah, thanks for coming on, Stephen.
Yeah, sure.
Good to talk to you.
Yeah, you've been great,
Stephen.
Stephen.
2 years.
Yeah.
Thanks for letting us know you're still here, Jimmy.
Oh
It's
yeah,
always good to know.
I'm here. No, it was a real kick to have you on, Stephen. Thank you.
Yeah, anytime.
And with that, we'll see y'all next week.
All right. Bye.